Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 19th, 2012 meeting of the Capital Improvement Committee. I'm sorry we're late getting started. We had to make sure all our membership was here, or at least enough for a voting membership. As usual, we will begin with introductions around the table, starting with Brian.
I'm Brian Rose. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Ivan Bellavoe, Budget Committee Rep.
Gail Breck, Member at Large.
Tim Redmond, Planning Board Chairman and Chairman of this committee.
Earl Carroll, Community at Large Representative and Vice Chair of the CIP Committee.
Lowell Von Ruden, Member at Large.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Our first order of business tonight is the minutes from the June 21st meeting.
Actually, the June 7th meeting. which we
That's
deferred.
right.
That's right, we did.
I got the wrong one in front of me. June 7th, correct. Meeting of the June 7th meeting, we deferred them because not everyone had a chance to read them. So does anyone have any corrections or changes to the June 7th meeting minutes?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Earl to approve,
Second.
seconded by Lowell. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes being approved as presented, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Everyone is it's a unanimous decision. Chair votes yes. Okay, now, as I stated earlier, the minutes from the last meeting, which were June the 21st. Does anyone have any corrections, changes, or omissions from those minutes?
Motion to approve minutes of June 21st.
Second.
Motion by Lowell to approve the minutes of June the 21st, seconded by Earl. Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Chair votes yes, unanimous. Okay, thank you. As we all know, we skipped our meeting on July the 5th, which was our first callback and deliberation workshop, so we begin tonight as a deliberation meeting. So as usual, we will start with the vehicle matrix. We'll go department by department until we complete all the vehicles, make our suggestions and changes, and we'll move on. So,
Tim, can I make a comment?
please, Earl.
I think we just need to reinforce to ourselves and to anybody else who's involved in the committee that we're not a budget committee. We're a planning committee. And what we've got to do is weigh the wants of the department heads against the needs of the town. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not going to work. But I think everybody's got to understand that if we, in order to level out the dollar amount, even though we're not a budget committee, we still have an obligation to try to level out those amounts so as not to create a major impact to the taxpayers of the town, and by the same token, not to create hardship to the departments in what they feel that they need to do for the town. So merely, pushing something out, farther out into the matrix, shouldn't be construed as not feeling it's necessary. But we have to do that also by looking at the priorities that the department uses and the priorities that the CIP committee uses to determine what really needs to be brought forward to the budget committee, to the selectmen, for their review as part of the CIP process.
I agree with everything you said, Earl, and I thank you for restating that for everyone's information.
Mr. Chair.
Please, Brian.
Just if I may, really quick before we start into the matrix, also just explain that I did update the matrix some of the information that I have available to me. Some of it is still needing to be updated, from, little tidbits of information from departments. However, the big thing that I did was, that reorganization to show the offsetting revenues under each subcategory within the matrix. So if you'll take a look, for example, the police vehicles section, you can see there's lines 4 through 23, 24, I guess, that are for the vehicles themselves. And then below that, I've left some lines that are available for any time in the future when there may be offsetting revenues that would be applicable to police vehicles. Even though that's a 0 right now, I wanted to put that in and leave it as an available spot. Now there are some lines, for example, the fire offsetting revenue lines does have something in there for the ambulance reserve fund, and then the capital reserve fund that they're hoping to have approved. So that's an example of where it is working. So I did that in every section throughout the town matrix. I didn't do it on the schools. I don't know if it's necessary to do it on the schools. It's sort of on its own little thing in the back anyway. So, we can make a determination if it's worth it to do that. But anyway, that's essentially what I did, and hopefully it'll make more sense. And there may still be a few bugs to work out. I'm not sure. I tried to get it to the best that I could with the time that I had before the meeting. So, we'll work through it and get, if there's any comments, then we'll try to fix them.
Thank you, Brian. Any other thing to discuss before we try to begin here? Okay. We'll begin with the first department section, lines 1 through 23, it looks like it's the police department's vehicle program. We have 4 requests from the police department this year totaling $200,000 and $200,333. I have some thoughts on the subject, but I'll defer the floor to anybody else who would like to speak first.
I guess I'll take the first shot at it. Starting up the top, the command post. When we look at that as an individual item, it's almost half of the police department's vehicle budget for this year. And so you start to say, well, wait a minute here. Is this something that we need, something we can defer? And I will say, this has been on
For as long as
the
I've
radar
been on it.
screen for a long time.
As long as I've been on this committee.
Yeah, and we've deferred it a number of times. We also have to understand that the vehicle is well over 20 years old. It certainly is not appropriate for the use that it is given. That being said, it's a hefty chunk of change. I would be inclined to take one of the cruisers and move that out a year. I know that that gives us, 4, would put 5 cruisers in the next year. We might want to push one more out to give us 4 next year and 4 in 2015. That would be my suggestion. Give the police department their command post and 2 cruisers this year, 4 cruisers next year, 4 cruisers in 2015.
Anybody have any other comments?
I think that's a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that's what I had on my sheet, so we all seem to agree. So I marked the mileage down on the 3 that were due to be replaced this year. The first one is a 67,000 mile car, the next one's an 86,000 mile car, and the next one is an 68,000 mile car. The newest one with the lower mileage is the 2009 line 21 with 68,000. So I would suggest we take that particular vehicle, move it out 1 year to 14,
Which line was that?
line 21. And then you look at the next group that's asked to be replaced, there is a 79,000 mile vehicle. 52, 59, and 59. Once again, we have to make a decision on that, so the other, line 20, is another 2009, so I would suggest we move line 20 out 1 year and add that to the 2015 column.
I agree with that.
Brian can redo the numbers.
Wouldn't it be line,
The first
Uh,
one, Brian, was to take line 21 and move it out 1 year.
mm-hmm,
The second one is to take line 20 and move that over to 2015.
isn't line 20 a higher mileage than line 18? Which
It
is.
is a little higher mileage, but it's a newer vehicle.
The
So-
other
That's,
concern
isn't
that I've
that
got
the
on
reason why you would move that out?
you know, my rationale would be, and I agree with Tim on this one, is that line 18 is,
The
is
Expedition.
the Ford Expedition, it's the only one they've
Okay.
got.
Yeah,
And that one is that's a supervisory vehicle.
yeah,
Probably gets a little less use, but a little rougher use
Winter use,
than an average cruiser.
yes.
okay.
My thought. So,
Okay. So line 20,
And then again, you know, for reality purposes, we always give the department, in this case, the chief, the option of swapping one vehicle for another due to, you know, mileage is only one indicator. Overall mechanical issues, physical condition of the vehicle.
we can always bring that up at a
They could-
later.
Yeah, I
later
mean,
meeting.
that doesn't, you know, a vehicle, in this case, a vehicle is a vehicle is a vehicle if it's a standard Ford Cruiser. So just because we're moving a particular asset number out doesn't mean that that's necessarily gonna be the one that's gonna be replaced. I mean, we've seen that happen with DPW trucks, we've seen it happen with fire apparatus.
okay.
Again, planning tool.
All right, and then the, Brian, when you redo this matrix, the lines 22 and 23, which are the two new cars,
Yeah.
they replaced line 13 and line 9. Because those are the adopted budget numbers. I
Right.
assume that those two vehicles were moved out of the police fleet this year.
Yeah, after this is all, it stays in because it shows the amount that was spent on the adopted budget.
Right.
So
And then-
next year, those lines will disappear and these will,
And you'll move them up, and 22 and 23 will go away, actually, if you move them up into those slots to keep them packed in.
right, right.
Okay. All right, so the suggestion is to move those police vehicles out. Does anybody have any suggestions, changes, or is everybody in agreement that we should leave it that way? We're not gonna have formal votes and motions. I don't think we need to. We're a committee.
I agree.
So we're all in agreement?
I'm good. Yep.
Okay. Okay, there are no offsetting revenues for the PD, so we'll move down to the fire department. I see the fire department has basically two requests this year. A forestry unit for $125,000 and a capital reserve request for $250,000.
I'm good with what they got.
Anybody wanna make any changes, or we're gonna leave the fire department's request sheet alone for now? This is the first time through. We can always come back through a second time if we feel we need to.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Ivan?
Just as a point of information, the way that the offsetting revenues work on this, if you look on the totals, they almost all average out to that 250,000 of the capital reserve fund. So really, the capital reserve fund is gonna cover most all of their requests for the next 6 years. It'll be a little bit above in 2013, and it'll be a little bit above in 2014. But the rest of the years, as you move out, it's just that 250,000 covers all their vehicle requests.
Ryan, I question your number though, on the, on line 51. How do you get 500,000 in 2014?
Well, that's using the 2013 and 2014 250,000. So if the 250,000 gets approved for both of those years, then you have that 500,000.
But then you go to 16, and he's requesting another 250 in 16, but you only go to 45,000 in 16. How come?
Well, there's
15 and 16.
only a request for 45,000, so there would be an additional saved
Where's-
up amount.
According to my sheet, the capital reserve request is for 250,000 every year through the whole matrix.
Right, right, and that's correct.
But how come we only are showing on the reserve fund, should it be approved, 45?
Well, I guess, should I be showing the full 250 no matter what on those
I
lines?
don't think you should show anything cumulative. I think you should show them individual. And should they be approved, then you can add it to it and it would become
I see
cumulative.
what you're saying, Tim.
Am I making sense?
I see where you're going with this, but I also see Brian's point on this one. Because if we're using this as a planning tool, then we're rolling that capital reserve money forward to show what the actual bottom line is gonna be to the town.
the total amount in that capital reserve fund will end up being, over time, it'll be more than what's,
I don't think we
On
can
here.
show, I don't think we can show a capital reserve fund for any line until it's approved. I think those lines should all be blank between you and me. I don't think there should be anything in them. Because we can't show capital reserve funding if it's not there.
should I list it as anticipated capital reserve?
You could put anticipated in the note column, but it
Yep.
shouldn't show as dollars unless the voters have approved
Because
it.
we're doing that with grants though, too, on the anticipated grants
Yeah, we
and
should-
the offsetting revenues.
Yeah.
I think it's confusing, that's all.
Well, I guess one question that I would have on how this is shown, the capital reserve fund is gonna be an independent warrant article, I would assume.
Yes, it would.
And will it be a continuing warrant article, or is it gonna have to be renewed every year to the tune of $250,000 or whatever that amount is?
Depends how the selectmen word the article.
And that makes it a little tough for us to decide whether we should show nothing, whether we should show 250 a year, or whether we should do it the way Brian is showing it on the matrix, rolling it forward minus the expenditure.
So
So
you-
three different ways of showing it,
So Brian, you're
and
doing,
they all have merit to them.
you're doing the math in advance. You're doing the the request for the years out, anticipating that the
The money
capital
will be
reserve
there.
money will be there, and then showing the net cost at the bottom.
Right.
Well, I think that's Enron math.
Well,
I'm sorry,
Okay.
don't take it as an insult. I'm just saying, I don't think we're kidding anybody, including ourselves. I don't think we should work like that on our matrix, myself. Because the money's not there. I can't see putting money into the matrix, it's not there. This is all requests.
It's certainly not clear without some kind of explanation in the notes.
Maybe,
I make the comment though that, we're doing that, and we have been doing that all along with, anticipated grants.
that's true, we
We
have.
list that as an offsetting revenue that, should this grant be approved, then we'll spend this money.
That's right, Brian, and that's on a year-to-year basis. I think where Tim's problem is on this is, rolling that number forward, which we have not done before. We've only shown and I guess it makes a difference in perception when you show the offsetting revenues linked to the particular matrix items. I think we probably never really considered it much before when all those offsetting revenues were shown at the bottom of the matrix. Here, it makes it much more noticeable doing it this way. And believe me, I understand exactly why you did it, and I don't have the same kind of problem with it that Tim does.
Okay.
The ambulance reserve fund, I think, is a valid point, because The ambulance reserve fund is a funded account that's funded through users' fees. It's gonna be there no matter what.
Right.
Well, I would like to propose just putting it as, under the title of the offsetting revenue, just put it as anticipated capital reserve.
That's fine. If you
Yeah.
wanna memo it that way, that'll
That's
work.
fine.
And then just leave the rest the way it is. And that way, we can say, okay, we know we don't have this money right now, but we anticipate obtaining it. And if that's the case, this is how the dollar figures will work out.
Okay,
So should there also be some kind of explanation in the memo section there too about the rolling forward, since that's not normally done with the grants? It's kind of different for this.
For the having it be a yearly request, you mean?
Well, if you just look at that line by itself, I mean, if the idea is that you would have 250K each year, but then in the matrix you see 500, 45, 50, 25, just looking at that, you know, what's going on there? There's no explanation.
So, well, I guess that asks the question, should I be instead putting 250 in that line every time, just like it is down
Well,
below?
Well, that would be one way, or if you want to leave it this way, I mean, I think that would be okay too, as long as you explain it.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, you've sat on the planning board for a number of years.
Yeah.
And when we've made our presentation as a CIP committee to the planning board, we come in with a fairly extensive narrative as to what we've done, why we've done it. Whether or not, and I don't know if that makes it through to the budget committee and the selectmen, I'm assuming it probably does. Do you think that would be sufficient if we, when Tim does the report, or when I work with Tim on that report?
I don't think that's a substitute for having explanations in the memo section, because, you know, like when I would get the matrix ahead of time, you know, I would, you know, read through that. And, you know, if there's something like this that's not obvious, you know, I'd be confused and not know what was going on. So if you could put a little note
Yeah.
in the memo.
I think we're spending way too much time on this.
Well, I think one other idea that comes to mind is I've seen, you know, when administration has spent money, for example, they've used the Mildred Stark Fund, which, you know, I don't know how much money is in that account, but they've made it in the notes, just like you say.
Right.
You know, 30,000 or 50,000 to be used from Mildred Stark
Yeah,
Fund.
and I think that's fine. It's just that in this
So-
case, there are no notes.
Right, so if you want, I can write some notes up on,
Yeah,
you know,
I think that would be fine.
on these lines that, you know, 35 would be, or 45 would be spent in 2015 from the capital reserve fund, and then just populate that line with the full amount, and that'll be,
Yeah, I think that would be good.
okay? Does that make sense to everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just make some notes here.
Okay, we'll move down to Public Works. Before we even look at the Public Works line, we need to go to to page 3, and go to the subtotal page. We have a huge discrepancy over the next 3 years in the Public Works request list. We're $1 million and change this year, we're $458,000 the following year, and $492 the following year, and then all the way down to $311 in 16. So I'm pretty sure that they are anticipating that we're gonna move some vehicles over into those lines, if I can get you to agree with that.
Yeah.
So, we'll take them one at a time. The first item is the 95 Freightliner tractor. As the Public Works Director explained, that is the spare truck. That is the one they purchased used in the event that the new truck was to break down. And he wants to flip them. He wants to buy another new truck and make his first line truck his backup truck. And we move down to the next one, which is a 2000 Sterling dump. That's a 6-wheeler. The next one is a 299 Sterling 10-wheeler. That is the one they just put the brand-new body on. You can see his body was replaced in 2011 and will move to the new chassis. Then we go down to a loader, which is a 97. Then we move down to the grader, which is a 92. For 90,000, they must be gonna do some rehabilitation work. Recon machine,
Yeah.
yep, there it is right there. Then there's 93 Yard Horse, which is the old military vehicle they bought, which just moves the trailers around the yard. And then there's 3 Ford F-550, F-550, and F-350 vehicles they want to replace. So,
I do know that there had been a question last time, and I never got the answer back from DPW on the price difference between the F-550s. There was one that was higher than the other one, just by a few thousand.
mhm.
You have $3,100 price discrepancy between line 78 and line 75.
It's a $3,000 price discrepancy.
Yeah.
2,900, yeah. Well, anyway, something's got to be moved here, I would assume. So, does anybody looking at this matrix have any suggestions for what we might move? And I'm not leaning on Earl to speak first.
If
All
you're-
right.
If you're just looking at, age of vehicles, would it make sense to move, line 78, that second 550?
Line 78,
Yes, that's,
the 2004,
that's relatively new compared to the other ones.
considering moving that out? What would you say, little 1 year, 2 years?
Let's see, where, both 2014, 15 are, in the upper 400s now. So,
It wouldn't be a bad thing to move them there.
yeah, to either one, I would say,
Or would you like to move it out to 2014?
sure.
That's line 78.
Line
Yeah.
78. I think the Yard Horse can get moved out, and I'll tell you why, because they have 2 trucks, they have a truck and a spare truck. So they certainly could, in the event that the Yard Horse was to break down, they could certainly,
Use something else.
and that vehicle was purchased as a government surplus vehicle for some very, very small money. So we're talking about getting something much newer, or much better, to shuttle the trailers in the yard with. And then the other one is the 2000 Sterling dump truck for 100, line number 6059. Well, the loader's a big number too.
Yeah.
So we have to pick between the dump truck and something here.
What do you want to move the Yard Horse out to?
Well, we haven't voted to move that out yet,
I
Brian.
would say 2 years.
2 years? Okay, would you think 2 years would be appropriate, Earl?
I think 2 years would be good.
So
Again,
15?
because, yeah, and the other thing I'm gonna suggest, even though we're working on this year's matrix, looking at the numbers, I'm gonna suggest that we take one of the 100 cubic yard trailers, line 68 or 69. I think it's 68 or 60, yeah.
Yeah, they're both 2002s.
Yeah, and push that out a year into 15. Because if some of the stuff, I can understand Carl's desire to get it done sooner rather than later. But if we don't do that, then we're gonna get ourselves into a mess next year.
So we'll take line 69, because they're identical vehicles. Take line 69 and move that out 1 year to 15.
Right. That gives us a little more flexibility for next year.
All right, well, we're gonna have to We have four, really, five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items that are over 90,000. We gotta do something with something here. Go all the way down to line 81, the 2004 pickup for the sewer department. That was that split cost vehicle, and now it's the highway department's turn to buy that. Now, I do know that they use that for plowing, and I know that that is an older vehicle, so I would like to leave that one in if it's all the same to everybody. The 53,000 request for that.
It does have more miles, but it's listed as a 2004,
Yeah.
year-wise.
Are we good to leave the other 2003 F-550 in for 92.3?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
probably good to
that's-
have one of the two in
One,
there.
yeah, we've gotta give them one of those two.
Okay, so then we keep moving up the page. The 90,000 for the Caterpillar Grader Recon. I know they just put a used motor in that grader, so maybe it does need to be reconditioned. I can't tell you because I don't know the facts about that. And they do use the grader, and I argued for the grader last time they wanted the new one because in the event of one of those monster snowstorms, that all-wheel drive grader is the only thing that can get up roads like Mountain Road and different roads like that that are steep and narrow that the plow trucks just can't make it. That machine is, for safety's sake, for emergency services, that's the machine that can plow the roads, even the Summit Road up to the radio towers. So I'm in favor of leaving the Grader Recon in, to keep that in service.
Tell us about the loader, Tim.
The loader, Carl explained to us, this is the loader that they use down on the job site all the time. It's not their primary loader. In the wintertime, it loads sand and salt and works out on the road jobs. They have a newer John Deere loader. It's in the list here somewhere. I think it's in the list here.
Yeah, line 95 on the next page.
Oh,
That is the loader that they use, they plow the village with that loader. You see that loader in the wintertime
Yeah.
plowing around the village? That's the newer of the two machines. So, I'd be inclined to leave the loader in to be replaced, because it does have 16,000 hours on it. That is a lot of time on that machine. And take the line 59, which is a 2000 Sterling dump truck, and move that out 1 year. That would leave a lot in Public Works, but it would at least move some of the stuff out.
So 59 goes out.
Well, I'm discussing it with the rest of the committee here right now.
Go out 1 year.
1 year, I think, would be good, because you moved out the 81,
right, yeah, so that helps.
but you replaced it with 95. You also
Right.
added 95.
Right.
But it still would only bring it, still gonna bring it up.
146, 246, 300.
But 13 is so
We're
large.
bringing it down a little over 300,000 right now for 2013.
And then we can, in the out years, we have other stuff we can move. We have the
Yeah.
94 backhoe, which is the machine they use at the transfer station to, to grab the stuff in the containers. So are we in agreement that we should move the line 59 out 1 year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make a note on my matrix here. So we've effectively removed 150,
A little over
200,
300.
about 300,000 we took out, almost
Yeah.
300. So that reduces that line to around 700,000. It moves those other lines up, so they're starting to balance at this point.
Yeah.
And we still have time to balance the lines in the out years.
Could you note which ones have been moved out from 13 to 14, please?
From 13 to 14, line 59.
Right.
From line 69, went from 14 to 15.
Got it.
Line 73 went from 13 to 15.
Got it.
Line 78 went from 13 to 14. Got all that, Ivan?
Now, what about line 75?
Line 75
Five
stays
stays.
in.
Okay,
And we did that as a trade-off. We figured between 75 and 78, we had to give them one.
all right, thank you.
And once again, we're looking at safety and maintaining the master plan. There's a lot of things we're looking at here. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're looking at reducing the tax impact at the bottom line over the years. When you have a 1 million impact in 13, and a 458 in 14, and a 492 in 15, and a 311 in 16, trying to even those out is what our function is as a CIP committee.
Yeah, well, again, I need to communicate this to the budget committee.
All right, they should all be watching tonight.
Both of them.
They're in the pool.
Yeah, I hope so, for their sake.
So we're not concerned that, this early to try and bring, 16 up since it's rather low.
I think we should leave those out years alone, Lowell, because we will have an opportunity to put something in 16 in the out years.
I'm sure it'll come.
Yeah, essentially, you've dropped 2013 to about 7. You've raised 2014 to about 7. And 2015 went up, 60 plus 80, 140,000.
That's 550.
So that's 5.5.
So that means we still have room to,
It did even it out
Well,
somewhat.
then I think that still gives a little bit more room if we need to work on this.
and we're not gutting the requests from the Public Works Director.
Right.
We're giving them a lot here. We're letting a lot of stuff go through. What happens to it after this, I'm sorry, but
Yeah, and some
at this
bigger
point-
things too.
at this thing. Okay, is anybody in agreement on the Public Works? We need to move
I
on.
think we're good.
Okay with everybody? All right. We move down to the Parks Department. They have a very good column, nothing. We love the parks. Now, we have nothing for building inspection. Now we go to admin. We're done with the vehicle matrix. Go to admin. Post 13.
Well, just out of curiosity, we were at $1.6 million
Brian,
this year on the vehicle matrix.
for the DPW.
No.
Oh, for the whole thing?
Total.
Yeah, what did we reduce it to?
We reduced it
You want my
by
calculator?
300, just eyeball it, 300, 335, 340, something like that.
So still $1.3 million or $1.2 million?
$1.3 million, yeah.
What was the other thing we had kicked out?
We
Besides
kicked
DPW?
A
Police, right?
one
One of the
police
police
car.
cars.
One police car.
It's probably about 350, because it was about 320 from Public Works.
Yeah.
Between you, me, and the wall, I really think that we could kick that fire department vehicle too. But that's, forestry units are not high-demand vehicles in today's area. They
They
do
are
go
in-
out, yes.
They are in Keene.
They aren't
Isn't
in,
that the one that got stolen in Keene?
I don't, well, maybe. I don't have the, I don't
They're
have
gonna
the
come here
statistics
next.
from the fire chief on how many times it rolls, but
I'm
maybe,
inclined
maybe,
to-
maybe we could get them to get a used Humvee from the military and outfit it with some stuff that they need. $125,000 for a truck to go out and fight a brush fire is a pretty good vehicle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd be inclined to move
I'd
that,
be
but
inclined to move it, but let's
Leave it for
defer
now?
that and see where we wind up
Okay.
tonight.
Okay. Okay, so we finished with the vehicles, we finished page 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
We are now at the administrative, line 135. 36. Proposed CIP for this year is $140,000 for the master plan comprehensive update. Brian, is that required by statute for this year?
It's not a requirement per the statute. It's a requirement that we have one and that it have, and then it recommends 10-year updates.
Where are we right now? Where was our last update?
We're at about 7. We have about 3 years to complete the master plan update. So it could be deferred a year if that's what the CIP
Thank you.
group thinks.
All right, so we have the financial software, the next thing at 300,000, which we've been requesting, we've been pushing that through for 4 years that I can remember, 3 or 4 years, which is a priority 1. And then we have the Grassmere Town Hall re-siding, and that's a 3-year commitment at 50,000 a year.
Now, I did not attend the financial software meeting Tuesday night because I was out of state. So I don't know what happened. I did get the minutes via email this afternoon, but I will be very honest, I haven't even opened them, let alone looked at them or read them.
Okay. We have an opportunity for you to comment at our next meeting, if
Yeah.
you'd like to comment at our next
Yeah,
meeting.
I will say, based on what I do know, the financial software is a legitimate priority 1 item.
I agree completely.
So I think we're really into the Grassmere Town Hall re-siding and the master plan. And I think everybody knows where I stand on Grassmere.
Well, I will not read into your thoughts right now, but I will say that if we are at 7 years for the master plan, and we are supposed to update it every 10, we certainly could go out at least 1 year with the master plan update and still be at 8, and have plenty of time to select a vendor and get it completed in a 2-year time frame. And even if we ran over a little bit, we're not gonna be fined.
Another point on that topic is, and I haven't really announced it to everybody, but it is public, so we did get the $50,000 grant that we had applied for on the Pinardville project.
Which is the, what was that,
It's
Brian?
to do a sustainable community plan for
Okay.
Pinardville
Okay.
and a smart code that would essentially implement that sustainability plan. And so, you know, part of that is a sustainability plan. We could kind of take that sustainability plan, adopt it as part of the master plan, and
Save a little money?
use that as maybe a way to update soon, you know, without having to do the full town update project.
Okay.
Now, I still would recommend we look at the rest of it soon, but, you know, we can kind of maybe buy ourselves a little bit of time with that.
So I would suggest we move the master plan update from 13 to 14, and maybe that'll work out based on what Brian's comments are. We still would have 2 more additional years to have that prepared, even by statute, so we wouldn't be putting the town in any jeopardy. Grassmere Town Hall siding, is everyone in agreement that we need to leave the software in place?
Yes.
We've had Jan O'Connell in here when she was finance director, and we've been told by everyone since the same thing, that it's was a mom and pop operation they got the software from. Their customer support has been reduced to hardly available.
I
And,
believe it's a half day a week.
and should the town's software fail or not function, they wouldn't be able to do basic functions like pay bills and do payroll and other things like that, so it'd be all done by hand. They rely on computers so much. So with that said, are we gonna leave the software alone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. What do we wanna do about Grassmere Town Hall re-siding? I don't see any anticipated grants against that revenue. This is a straight-up request from the taxpayers. Am I not seeing no, there is no offsetting revenue shown on that. Are they applying for some more funding over there at Grassmere? Anybody knows about?
They claim that they are, but I keep getting conflicting messages every time we ask that question.
Well, Derek had said that over the life of the project, they have gotten several grants. And, you know, those are being used up currently as we speak on the current project. Um, But, you know, any work into the future for like the siding project, they would have to apply for additional grants, you know, whatever's available. So,
Brian, what I'm gonna ask you now is I went to the worksheet in our book, and they show that the first year request for that is in 2014 on their request sheet. It's in the admin section.
For the Grasmere Town Hall?
Yeah, what the sheet says, there's no request in 13 for it. If I'm not reading it correctly, it's right after the little picture of the Grassmere Town Hall reciting, like the
Yeah, there's-
fourth or fifth thing in. Am I reading something wrong,
Yeah,
Earl?
I've got the worksheet here. It shows 150,000, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
What do I have?
that's what I'm seeing too.
Oh,
You got-
my mistake, it's the revenue collection thing, and where is the Grassmere one?
Should be
Before-
right
it's
in front of
Right
before it.
before those photos.
My mistake, I apologize. Yep, it is there. And are they saying there's gonna be any? Well, the building is on the National Register of Historic Places. And we should, in my opinion, take care of our history here in town. Maybe we'd be doing a disservice by not letting it go through, Earl. I know you have an opinion,
I do.
and you can feel free to.
I disagree, but I'm sure I'm gonna get outvoted.
No, it's not a vote here,
Well, yeah,
it's a consensus. Maybe other people feel the same way, you have to,
Why do you disagree?
Having dealt with the Grasmere Town Hall issue for at least the last dozen or more years that I've been on this committee, my impression is that this building has become a money pit, kind of like the movie.
do we have a number on what the town has invested in that?
Derek ga-
Taxpayers, I'm saying.
Derek gave us some numbers when he did his presentation. If you give me a minute, let me see if I can find it quickly in the
Well, we could
minutes
cer,
of the last meeting.
you may not have to do that, we could have Brian ask Derek for a
Uh,
spreadsheet on that for a upcoming meeting, so we don't have to delay this one.
Oh, this one. Here we go. Derek said not counting funds for architects, there's been 127,000 and change gone toward restoration from tax funds. Private donations, 36.5. Grants have been 168,000 from various sources. Most grants need matching funds. My
Did those
count-
other two numbers add up to matching for the
I
grant? What was the town side and the donation?
160, 364, and grants about 168.
So that's pretty close to almost a matching grant right there, between funding from the town and
Right, 50/50.
donations.
Yeah.
It's pretty close to a matching number.
Yeah, so
Now, are
almost-
they applying for another matching grant to match this 150, do you know?
Well, I think the 150 is the total cost they're anticipating for the siding project, you know, and so if they do go for a grant, they'll try for as much of that as possible. And may have to only use, you know, a 20% match or whatever that, if there is a grant out there that they could get. I don't know what grants are available, so I mean, it may be a smaller grant that's only available, and, you know, that's
I
all
mean,
they can get. I don't know.
Seems that most of the historic preservation grants that I've seen over the course of time have been no better than 50/50.
All right, well,
So they might be able to get 75,000 worth of that 150.
would you like some more information before we make a decision, or would you like to move with it tonight?
Well, I think we need to to move on and at least get an idea of where things are in terms of the total dollar amount. So if you want to go with it, we'll go with it, but I think I've made my position fairly clear.
Lowell, do you have a opinion?
I'm good with leaving it where it is.
Ivan?
Yeah, with reservations, yes.
You would leave it? Gail?
I would tend to agree with Earl, not so much that I know a lot about it, but knowing his experience. And he said he's worked with them for 12 years and then some.
Well, the only thing I can say, Earl, is that if we let the 50 go through this year, we're not guaranteeing the 50 in the out years.
True.
Right, because this is all, they've already done the one side 5 years ago. You know, they've been waiting 5 years to do the
So
next
I would
side.
be inclined to let it go through on the basis that it's a $50,000 request to the taxpayers, if you want to call it seed money, to try to get matching funding. And then in the out years, we don't necessarily have to approve that in the out years. We could push that out. Maybe they'll do a better job and get it done cheaper in the meantime. So I might want to give them the opportunity with a first bite at the apple, and then see how the second and third bites go.
Let's see what happens.
So are we not all in agreement, but we will leave it, we will leave it as a standalone $50,000 request with no guarantees in the out years that we would leave that
Yeah, just like anything else, there's no guarantee.
in the out years.
There's no guarantees of anything.
At least I'm not asking for all 3 years in one lump. Okay. We have some offsetting revenues here, TE grants for the rail trail, impact fees.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters, but I'll say again that, you know, the anticipated grant, TE grant in 2014 is not realistic. So if it helps to move that out a year.
So the 395,
That's
360.
for, that's for the existing grant.
That's the
we already
rail
have.
trail line. It's kind of stuck down at the bottom of
Well,
that big wide
It's-
page there.
It's sort of both years. I mean, we're into the project now.
Right.
So we have to re-accept the grant next year, but, you know, we're asking for
Right, but-
reimbursements as we speak
Right,
on
but that is a current grant. You know, the 2014 number is something we don't have, we've never had. That's,
You're talking about the 233.6 or the,
right.
that's the one you're talking about?
Yeah, and the expenditure on line 142.
So right now, if we can be clear, for the
Right.
395, 360, the request, this year.
That's the grant that is currently underway.
is 316,000, that's all the grant is for, as listed in the matching, in the,
Right.
and then the other 79,000 comes from the,
Parks and Rec
Impact fees.
Right.
so is that 395 fully funded with impact fees and with a grant that you've
Should
already
be, yeah.
accepted?
Yes,
So there's no tax impact if we
Right.
leave that in this year.
right.
You good with that, Earl?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So you're saying though, Lowell, that the 233.600 should be moved to 2015?
Yeah, because it's never gonna happen. We'd have to be already
Okay.
right.
Yep.
And the way the, you know, the transportation
Well, then
bill is
that-
gone. you
That
know,
moves the
what's
292
happening.
out then as well.
Yeah, so that moves the
Right.
292 out.
Right, it moves both
Right.
of them.
So we're gonna move the 292 and the 233 out 1 year each.
You know, and it doesn't make a big impact net-wise because the grant covers most of it, but
Okay.
it's more realistic.
Okay, the library is the next request. They have repair and painting of the exterior for 28,000. I'm inclined to leave that alone. The
Okay.
library
Yeah, that's
came up with a lot of money to buy the land next door out of their own funds, so I think we should run that one right by.
Yep.
Police. Here's the other half of the police now. We got a IMC software and hindsight recorder replacements.
I think both of those are pretty necessary. I'm inclined to leave them.
I would agree.
Okay? Anybody wanna make a different opinion?
No.
Ivan, I'm looking over at you, okay? There are no offsetting revenues for that. Wait a minute. Well, that was last year, okay. Go to the fire department, proposed for 13, the 3,350,000, we don't even have to look at that, because that's gonna become a bond issue, warrant article, and then we don't have anything to say about that, I'm sure.
By the way, just as a point of information, that 3,350,000 used to say just 1,600,000, and it was only going to be for Fire Station 18. I put it on Fire Station 18's line, but it's for the three together. So the Fire Station Improvement Committee has been working over the past summer, and I know that when they came in, they spoke to that a little bit, that what they put in was kind of a placeholder. The outcome of that whole meeting is going to be that they're going to make a request for the full bond.
So would you please correct the source funding line where it says bond and then appropriation, and put them all bond? If it's gonna cover all three stations?
Oh, yes.
And then make a note in the memo that the bond amount, oh, you have it all for all three
He's got
stations,
it there.
that's fine.
He's got it. And I don't think we need to allocate it among the three stations, because,
No, that's their business.
Yeah.
It's a package. Right?
right,
It's a total package, and between the Board of Selectmen and the fire department, they will decide how they're gonna allocate that money between stations.
exactly.
Do you feel like the fire department needs to come and explain what they've talked
No.
about?
Nope.
Okay,
Not in the least.
okay. I was asked to find out from you if you wanted that, so.
No, we don't need to know the ins and outs of that. It's a number, it's going to, as a warrant article. It's not, it will have no bearing on the budget unless it's passed.
And I'll have the bond numbers for that I can populate, by next time, and so I'll put the out years of that bond, I'll fill that in once he gets me some estimates.
Fill that in for the voters, not for us.
Right.
Okay, Parks and Rec. Here's the half that they asked money for this year,
He's got, Rick has more in here this year
than Dave had for the
Dave
first
had for the
14
first 5
years.
years.
14 years.
14
We used to beg Dave to put something in. And because Dave didn't, this is where we are now. I'm sorry.
Kind of like the old DPW days.
Or the old fire days when they fixed fire trucks with baling wire and duct tape.
Yeah.
Now we're paying for it. You don't have to put that in the record.
Too late. It's already out on the TV.
That's okay, I stand behind my statement. Okay, Barnard Park Pavilion remodeling for $35,000, recreational field development for $100,000, Roy Tennis Courts for $110,000, Roy Park Playground for $40,000, and renovation of Barnard Track for $25,000. I think the recreational field development is the fly in the ointment in this thing here,
That's the least of the,
because it is a development project, and as I recall, it was for the property that the DPW hasn't even excavated the sand and gravel off yet.
Right.
Mr. Kilton Barnard's property.
yeah.
So it seems like it's a little bit premature.
So I would say,
I think we should move the whole thing out 2
I
years.
think the whole thing should be moved out and starting in 2015.
Yeah, move it out, move the whole thing over 2 years.
So it'll go to 16 and 17.
Right.
That was the easy one. The rest of it, I think, is, it's all, as far as I'm concerned, it's all money that needs to be spent. The pavilion, he gave us a great explanation at the Park Pavilion remodeling, and $35,000 is not a lot of money. The tennis courts, well, if in the opinion of the Parks Group, and have it as a priority one, they
We're
need to
saying-
be renovated, then they need to be renovated.
I'm saying only 1 out of 3 is usable.
And the playground and we know the track has to be done.
And I think what he's got here, as far as the track goes, that's essentially a full, I won't say a full rebuild, but it's more than just a coating.
I actually don't think you can do it for $25,000, but that's between you, me, and the wall.
Yeah, well, again, we talked about that the last time, that, you can
They can spruce it up a little
You
bit.
you can put a layer of macadam over it.
Says here, still determining the actual cost, 25,000 is a placeholder. Well,
Yeah, that kind of bugs me a little bit.
so I would say we should move that one right on out, since we don't have a real number.
Hang on a second, I just wanna take a look at what he's got on his submission form.
Yeah, it's something that needs to be done, but if they don't actually have a number.
Yeah, $25,000 placeholder.
And I think that hasn't been determined because the school hasn't decided if they're gonna kick in on it. Because if the big project fails at the school to do the big track behind the school, the school is probably gonna wanna kick in to help fix this so they can continue to use it.
Right, well, I will say that the current situation of that track, it is unsafe.
We know you walk on it, so you have a
Yeah,
good
it's
command of it.
Yeah, it's unsafe.
Yeah, I wouldn't dispute that, but how can you put something in here if you don't really have any idea what the number is?
Well, I'm very reluctant to take it out because I think we do know that it's gotta be done and it's going to be done fairly soon.
Well, if
Within
it's
the
not gonna
next
be done
fiscal
that
year.
soon, why don't we have a number?
Well, he says,
What is it listed under here in our submission sheets? Which one?
it's the last one. Parks and Rec.
I must have the wrong packet, because I have centralized pool as the last one.
Maybe it's the second last one.
Barnard Track Rehabilitation,
I got his last one.
yeah. My last one. He had come in though, giving us some numbers, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
I didn't write them down.
He's
Did
talking
you?
about a lot of different numbers.
Right, he gave us different, for different
Our track rehabilitation.
deliverables,
Right,
what the different costs could be.
Yeah,
right.
he
So
had
how can we,
different
how can we plan
scenarios.
for something when if they haven't even decided which
What do you have in your dollar figure
approach
for
they're gonna
that?
take?
25,000 placeholder and
Yeah.
X's in 2013. What's your submission sheet say? X's like mine does?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'd be inclined to move this if they don't really know what they wanna do yet.
Right, and again, it's not because it doesn't need to be done, but they don't know what they're doing.
So why would we approve a line if they don't know what they're doing?
Hang on a second, let's see.
Speed it up.
Get that whip out.
Okay, with it being, say it's a gravel layer, asphalt layer, then rubber material on top of that,
Yep.
from late 19, to Band-Aid it, the cost is 7,000 for cracks, 27,000 for a layer of asphalt. They buy time but don't correct the problem, track company can rip it up and resurrect it for 290,000. He got another quote to fix the earth and gravel with asphalt for 175,000. So it looks like what he's planning here is 25 to 27,000 to put a layer of asphalt or asphalt composite over that track.
But that's more, that's 32,000 in my book. You had
No,
27
no.
and 7.
Well,
No,
maybe
no,
we
seven-
should put the question out to them.
To fill the cracks only is 7,000.
Right, but you have to fill the cracks before you can pave over it.
Right, but I think if you pave
And what's the paving price? So
27,000,
27 and 7 is 35.
unless that
Well,
20, 34.
34.
Unless that 27 includes.
included the cracks.
Includes the crack filling.
Yeah, it's not our job to second guess this. Why don't we put out a request, since we're gonna be asking about some other things anyway, and make them come back to us and say, what is it that you want? And if they don't know,
No.
then,
I would agree
No.
with Lowell. If we don't have a more firm
Well,
number and a better explanation, we're gonna move this
Should
out.
we have, Rick come to the next meeting?
Next meeting.
And
Yep.
just,
Couldn't that be a
Explain
capital
himself.
reserve request too?
If Parks and Rec wants to have a capital reserve program.
Building
Ivan,
something.
Yeah, you can put that in there, and then you can put the recreational field development into capital reserve as well.
yeah. Could do
Yeah.
that.
That's a long way off the recreational field
Well,
development.
so what you're talking about basically is a Parks and Rec capital reserve.
Yep.
And then it's not up to us on any given time to say, this is what you're gonna use it for. It's up to the department head to come in with a proposal and say, I wanna spend $10,000 to do this, and I wanna take it out of the capital reserve fund. The only, and I'm not sure if it's a concern or just a comment. Capital reserve funds are great. They're a planning tool, they're a budgeting tool, but I think you can get bogged down, or the voters, let's look at it from a political aspect. The voters can get bogged down if they see half a dozen capital reserve funds on the ballot. They may not understand that in the long run, it's gonna save them money. All they're gonna see is, $100,000 for Parks and Rec, and $250,000 for the fire department, and $250,000 for DPW vehicles.
250, how about
I'm just
750?
pulling numbers out of my ear here. If you do a DPW capital reserve fund, you're probably looking at $500,000 a year. But I'm wondering how this is gonna fly, not only with the voters, but even before it gets to the voters. You still have budget committee, selectmen, and planning board to get through.
But if it's explained as a cost savings rather than issuing a bond plus interest, it's like saving for a car rather than taking out a loan.
Absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think we're gonna get more information on this at our next meeting, so
Yeah.
let's move on.
Okay.
Agreed?
Yep.
Okay.
So
Okay.
is the only thing, are we
We're
still on
moving,
them?
we're moving the $100,000 from 13 and 14
Yep.
out to 16 and 17.
That's the only,
The 100,000
for
is in
now?
15 stays. And we will question Rick on the renovation of the Barnard track at our next meeting and make a determination on that at our next meeting.
Okay.
That's if he can come. Okay, Public Works.
Well, if he can't come, he can send the information.
Yeah.
He wants to send it in just a packet form, then you can present it to us quickly, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay, road plan, we don't touch. South Mass Drainage Bond, we don't touch. West Lawn Cemetery expansion, I think we're into it, we need to keep on going, it's looking good down there. Anybody disagree with that? Worthley Hill Road drainage upgrade, that could be looked at. That's a possibility. Transfer station generator, that's gonna possibly be a grant. I say we leave it in
I
because,
got a question there.
go ahead.
We're showing a request for 29.6 and anticipating $118,000 grant. Should we not show the total as $148,000?
Good point.
I was confused on that too, and I need to go, we need to look at the worksheet. What does the worksheet show, do you see? You have that?
100 and what? $48,000 for a generator for the transfer station?
Well, if the numbers are correct, he's showing a 29.6 request,
They have it in the notes.
anticipating 118.4 grant. Add those two together, unless my math is wrong, I get $148,000.
Yeah, you're right, the worksheet shows $148,000.
That's a gazunta generator.
I was gonna say that would a little, I think we need an explanation
So-
on why, well, no, we don't. We're not
So
budgeting.
the number in the, matrix, instead of 29.6, should be 148.
148,000?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, he's planning on running town hall with it too.
It's only gonna run the transfer station. So, I would suggest that we leave the generator alone, because that may go nowhere if they don't get the grant.
True.
And I wouldn't mind putting in 29,000 if we're gonna get a $118,000 grant.
I got no problem with 80/20 grants.
Okay, Pleasant Street Bridge replacement. Repairs to bridges while road being done, no state aid. Well, If Pleasant Street is on the road plan, the bridges are being broken out of it apparently and not part of the road reconstruction.
Right.
Pleasant Street, Mass Road improvements, Elm Street, Main Street and intersections. That money,
That whole project was supposed to go this year and got pushed out because of the
budget,
budget didn't get approved.
but we still retain the funding.
We still retain the grant at
That needs
least
to be said.
at least until next year. I think if we pushed it past that, we wouldn't be able to keep the grant.
I'd like to make sure that gets on the record and on TV, because if you read the paper says we lost the grant money. That's not
Yeah,
true.
we did not lose it.
No.
We pushed out the project and asked the state to defer giving us the
Um,
money until next year.
The only thing I'm a little off is the partially offset by the Bog Road project. That's $140,000 of off-site money that was approved by that project,
150.
okay? That money we will not see until that project starts. So that means that if you're going to do that project, the taxpayers are gonna pay for that until the developer ponies up the money when he starts that project. So everybody needs to know that. Because I don't think you're gonna send them a bill for that money and get it. I always thought it was 140, to be honest with you. I'm gonna look at the old planning board stuff. 140 was in my brain.
Okay.
Reconstruct Main Street, North Mass Street. 10-year road plan, not gonna happen. And the 234 is only for, design anyway. It's not for any actual work. Pipe camera inspection equipment, 75. Reconstruction of Maple Avenue tile and air detention ponds, 73. And it keeps going out, out, out. And this, I think, falls into the, argument that I made in the past, that if it was a standalone project for Maple Ave and Tyler for 73, then it should be a standalone project. Why it goes out all those years, if this is gonna become a maintenance item line, like the sidewalk program needs to be,
And the guardrail
That was-
program, and
That was one thing that I was supposed to follow up with Carl on, and we didn't address that, so.
rail trail slope culvert repairs, that for 120. So, go back to the beginning of the column, go back one page. The first two we can't touch.
actually, we can touch the road program.
The only thing we can do is cancel it. We can't lower the dollar figure. We can move it out and say no road program this year.
What?
We can't change the dollar figure,
Why not?
because we don't change dollar figures at CIP. We
That's-
move.
That's true.
We move items in the matrix. So the road plan is
Gotta stay.
someone else's prerogative. Bond payments, we leave alone, because we've already agreed to that.
West Lawn.
West Lawn, we like, I think.
Right, because we're into.
We're
phase-
halfway
we're
through
into
it.
phase 2 of 3 on there, so that stays in.
We're into phase 3, I think, at this point, almost,
I don't think so yet, but close enough.
okay? Worthley Hill Road upgrade, we talked about how this is tied to the project above it, Worthley Hill subdivision, that has been approved but has not started as of yet.
Any ideas to when or
Mm,
the economy issue?
From what I understand, the developer's trying to sell the project.
It doesn't seem like a very pressing issue then.
Well, except that
Except
it's in failure.
it's failure
Total
below the
failure.
project, yeah.
And this is the piece that needs to be in place before they can start the project anyway.
So I think we're gonna leave that in and let the selectmen decide on this, because the fact of the matter is, they know more about what's going on with the other stuff more than we do. I'm inclined to just leave it there and let them decide if they wanna push it out or not.
Yeah.
And the generator, I think we should just leave that alone.
We're showing an anticipating FEMA grant, and
Right.
FEMA's generally been pretty good about coming through with those grants.
The West Union Street Bridge sidewall repairs were approved in 2012, is that what I'm reading?
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Pleasant Street Bridge replacement, Is Pleasant Street on the road plan this year? That would be my question. If Pleasant Street is on this year's road plan, then I would say leave it in and let it run.
And that's a question we need to ask Carl.
So Brian, you're gonna have to get a question answered from Public Works. If Pleasant Street is on this year's road reconstruction, upcoming road reconstruction, then we'll leave the bridge alone. If it's not, we're gonna move it out to coincide with the years that it's scheduled to be in there. If no one disagrees.
Yeah, that makes sense, since it's supposed to go along with the road reconstruction.
Okay, we're up to the next one. This one has already been partially funded by a is it CMAQ grant? Is that the word?
CMAC.
CMAQ grant, so we're gonna have to just let this 761,000 slide for now until they,
Rick, they got, because they've already received the grant of 446,000.
right. The next one is the reconstruct Main Street North Mast. I think the whole thing should be slid out 1 year of each. 234 should go out to 14, 572 should go out to 16, and 674 should go out to 16. And see how the 10-year road plan happens or doesn't happen. Anybody like to concur with that or
I think that makes
disagree
sense.
with
We're
that?
not anticipating any grants to go along with that, right?
Which lines are those?
Line 220. That is part of the DOT's, he's thinking that they're gonna get 80% matching funds from the DOT's road plan or get some kind of funding from the road plan, and
Really?
the road plan is in big-time jeopardy. There's no money for anybody, so.
So tell me the years again on that one?
Everything just moves out.
Moves over 1 year. So we end up in 16, we start in 14 and end in 16.
Okay.
Pipe camera equipment. We can still hire a vendor. It's a 3, it's a low priority to them. We can still hire people to come in and do it. My idea would be to move that one out too. We're leaving a lot of other big-ticket items
How
in.
far out?
Just one.
Just one?
We don't have to deal with it then this year. We can deal with it next year.
I was thinking we might move it out too, but
Well, let's see.
Just as a point of information, the numbers are fairly even on all the years.
I see
I
that.
mean, they're 4, 4, 4, and then 3, 3, 3.
Right.
So
We have, well, the 333 now, by moving the North Mass project out, goes, that 3335, adding 674 goes up to 4 million.
don't forget, you're also adding $120,000 on the generator.
Yes. It may not be there.
Hmm.
I want to question the whole line 224 to Public Works, Brian, the whole detention pond program. Because if it was a standalone project for one pond, that's something, but to have it just keep going off into eternity
Yep.
makes it look like a maintenance line to me.
I have a note to follow up with Carl on that.
And the rail trail slope culvert repairs, I don't know,
So on the pipe inspection, you're saying 1 year out?
1
on that?
year out.
Yeah. He's got the rail trail slope culvert repairs as a 1.
Do you remember last year when this came in at the last minute
Yeah.
as a 1? And then when it went to the selectmen's meeting, because the Uncanunic Dam was under some mandate by the state,
They swapped it.
they swapped it, and it was said in public that the CIP got it wrong, that the rail trail wasn't a 1, that it was a 2, and that we had it backwards, and I know we didn't have it backwards. So, I think we're gonna have to let the selectmen decide on that one.
Leave it in.
Yeah.
All right.
We didn't move much, we only moved $400,000 out of 4 million, we moved 10% of it.
We got 300, actually,
No, we didn't move anything. We
Out of-
moved
out of-
nothing on the
oh,
first page.
out of Public Works, we moved 300,000 and then added 120.
What'd you say?
We moved 300,000 out
Right, the 234 plus the
234,
75.
I'm adding the 73 in because I'm not sure about that right now.
All right. But still, even if you do that, so you're at 400,000, but you're adding 120
Where's the 120? Because of the,
because of the generator.
well, that's, see, those are phony numbers too, because it shouldn't even be in there. Because the project won't be approved for 148,000 without the revenue.
Right.
So it will never happen without the revenue.
Correct.
So that 148
But
is,
you're showing the offsetting revenue line anyway.
so let's, hear back from Public Works about the the detention pond line that goes off into infinity here.
I'll also ask him about the Pleasant Street
Yes, if that's gonna
Bridge.
coincide with this year's road reconstruction
road
plan.
plan.
Right. Brian, on line 255, last line on page 6,
Mhm.
it says subtotal all-town vehicles. Should that be subtotal all-town projects?
That's subtotal
No.
for
It's just copying the
Oh, okay.
same
Yeah,
number
all
from
right,
up
okay.
above,
Yeah, because,
and
right,
then going
Okay.
into the other totals.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
it's a pagination
putting
issue.
putting all the totals together.
It's
yeah.
a pagination issue.
does that mean pages are out of sync?
No, what I would suggest if Brian can do it.
To take line 255 and move it to the top of the next page.
Right,
That
and then,
it synchronizes them all.
right, and then get line 302 and 303 onto the school page.
Okay,
That's a pagination issue,
well, Brian will handle that.
yeah.
We're not gonna talk about the sewer commission, because they are an enterprise fund. We're not gonna talk about the water precinct, because they're an enterprise fund. We're not gonna talk about Grassmere, because they're an enterprise fund.
So that takes care of the town side.
We'll move over to the school side, page 8. If you don't mind, I'll just lead right off here. The building performance upgrades have proven to be saving the town, so I would suggest we leave the
Those are self-sustaining.
Bartlett's facility, Phase 2 renovations is a warrant article, bond article. Have a nice day. Facilities renovation work for $6 million is the same thing.
It's a bond issue.
Performance building upgrades, we agree with, they're saving us money. We go down to line 322. Again, a $2,809,580 is another bond issue. And then we have another line that says GAHS renovation and addition bond, so that must be a different one.
Right, that's for more stuff at the high school.
We go to the next page, and we're all done. Because everything else is offsetting revenues.
That was easy.
The school pretty much did the same thing that they did last year, the way I read it. Earl, they came in with these bond issues, and they did not. They're assuming that all their little projects are gonna get sucked into the big project if the big project gets
Right,
approved. The boiler replacements, the carpet replacement, the
Correct.
window replacement. And I thought we saw them as individual projects, though. That's what I'm not,
We did, but if you look, Tim, a lot of that stuff is in the out years, 14, 15, 16.
so those will be moved back and disappear should the bond
Right,
article
if
pass.
the bonds pass, all that stuff goes away.
Okay.
And if not, what they're doing is they're throwing the bond issue up front into 13 and 14, the other projects into 14, 15, and 16, so that if they can fund the stuff up front, those out-year projects get rolled in, they go away. Then they come in with something else anyway.
So we're looking at, yeah, here's where the rest of the numbers come in. It's 2 million and, let's take Bartlett Phase 2 renovations, it's 2 million and 13, 2 million and 5 million and 14. So to my way of thinking, what happens if we start on Bartlett Phase 2, because it gets approved in 13, and then 2014 fails?
Well, didn't they state in the meeting that they were gonna go for all the money in the bond up front and then split the work up, that the phase
Yeah.
work would be in 2 years?
So they're
Exactly.
looking at 7,
We're looking at about $12 million.
more than that, 7,
So I
and
think we
6
asked
is
them that question. didn't
13, and 2 is 16, and 28 is 18.8, and 800,000 is 19.6. Keep adding, Earl.
Wait a minute. I get,
Go
all
to page 8.
right,
what do you
page
want?
8, all right,
You got
2
2
million.
plus 5,
Oh, all right,
that's 7.
7, and another 8.
It's,
All right, right, I was just looking at the 2013.
you gotta add
numbers.
these two together, these two together.
You're right.
Take the 2.8 million here and the 800,000 there.
Right, so we got,
We're up to about 19.5 million.
yep. And, you know, if they can pull that off over 2 years, more power to them.
And it's funny because when, in 2011, when they were here, all the numbers added up to 16.4. Suddenly they're $3 million higher.
7, 13, 15,
Here's why I added up when Ray was talking here the other night.
19 million.
Here's why I added up when Ray was talking.
I mean, eyeballing, we're a little over 19 million, so,
So it's a big number and they're gonna have a lot of voters to convince. And we're not gonna mess with that, cause that's their bailiwick. All right, the thing we normally do, we can do a little of it tonight, we still have some time. We talk about our priorities next. We
Yeah.
review all the priorities. So we'll go all the way back to page 1. CIP priorities are not plugged in. We will plug them into the items that are for this year only, as far as I'm concerned, right, Earl?
right.
So for PD,
So
on line number 4, I would think it'd be a 1. I would agree that that's a
I'd leave
1.
it as a 1,
I mean, CIP priority, we have to add in on our side.
right.
We have to write it in what we are doing.
Yeah.
Then we come down to line
Uh,
15.
15,
I give that a 1. And
No,
line,
they were saying 2.
yeah.
yeah, well, we can agree with them, but I think they need to have the cars replaced. And a
Yeah.
2 by there is a necessary, not an urgent, so I agree that it's a 2.
Same thing with line
Same,
18.
same for line 17.
Yeah.
17, I'm sorry. And,
We are moving line 21 out, so I guess we're gonna make that a 3.
right,
Everybody got that?
The rest stay the same?
Yes, because we're not prioritizing them, because we're not messing with them. We move down to the fire department.
line 35.
Line 35, we're gonna leave it as a 2, we'll
Two.
agree.
Well, you want it as a 2 or a 3? I know we were wondering if we have to
We have
toss
to,
something out, that would be it. But if you want to leave it as a 2, I guess I'm okay with a 2.
are we having the fire chief speak to this or not?
No.
No, okay.
Leave it as a 2.
Okay.
That's the only thing they want this year anyway.
And, well, no, there's the capital reserve fund as a 2 also.
Yeah.
We move to Public Works, line 55.
2?
This is the tractor they want to replace.
Yeah.
My opinion, it's desirable, not necessary.
Yes, it's like you said, they're buying a new one and then the current one becomes the spare.
Right.
Right. So the one they have now that has 600,000 miles on it, it's still a usable truck. Necessary means that it's, it's in imminent failure mode.
Yeah.
Urgent means it's broke.
Yeah, I would go along with 3.
Go with a 3. All right.
We move the Sterling, line 59, so I guess that's a 3.
The other
Line
Sterling.
61, I would agree it's a 2,
Yeah.
because that truck is in serious trouble. The loader at 63, I think that's a 3 myself.
So that's,
Doesn't mean we're leaving it in, but we're deciding that it's a 3.
so is that 16,000 hours, is that considered to be reasonable or high?
16,000 hours is a lot of hours. don't get me wrong. But in my experience, it's a piece of machinery. You can rebuild it.
Okay.
You can fix it. Just because it's got 16,000 hours doesn't mean you have to drive it off a cliff. So I would suggest we make that a 3. Does anybody want to fight on that one? Earl, what's your opinion?
My thought was to leave it as a 2, but I'm willing to go with a 3 as long as we leave the grader as a 2.
Okay. Do you want to leave them both as 2, Earl? Would you
I,
feel better
I,
about it?
I would feel better
Well,
about
then
that.
I'll agree with that. Noel?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Then we'll move the grader to a 2
Yeah,
as well.
grader is a 2.
Then we move down to the
Yard
yard horse, we're
horse.
gonna make that a 3. Because we moved it.
Yeah, line 75, we'll leave that one as a 2.
Line 78, we moved it, so we gotta
Well,
obviously call that a 3.
Yeah, my only concern, and just
Which
bear
one?
with me for a second, on line 78.
Yeah,
Carl has asked for 3 dumps with plows. Line 58, line 61, I think 4. Line 58, line 61, line 75, and line 78.
Mhm.
2 of these we've moved out.
yeah. One large one and one small one.
Right.
Doesn't cripple the department.
No,
Actually, I think I made a mistake on this, Earl. 78 is the one we should leave in, because it's a 2004 with 61,000 miles. The one we left in is a 2003 with
Right.
88,000 miles. So I suggest we reverse those, because I think I made a mistake when I suggested we move that one out.
no, you were right, Tim. We're replacing the older one with the higher mileage. And we're
I
moving
have 78 is the one we moved. What line did you mark?
78.
But that's got lower mileage, it's got 61,000
Right,
miles.
Right, so we're
That's
moving
why
it
I
out
wanna
of
move
here.
it out.
That's why we
That's why we
keep it
pushed
for
it out.
longer, because it's a
Alright.
newer vehicle.
Okay, then we did do it right.
Yeah, newer vehicle, less mileage,
Okay.
give it another year to go.
Okay, I agree, then I made a mistake.
So.
All right, and the sewer truck, at line 81, we're gonna leave that at 2.
Right.
If we took all the big trucks away and left the little trucks in, Earl, I'd say we'd be doing them a disservice. But since we selected one of each,
Yeah.
you can't have everything, I'm sorry. Much as we'd love to give you everything.
Well, let's face it, every department head, well, don't ask, you don't get.
Page 3 has nothing to even discuss. Page 4, line 137, the master plan update. Obviously, we must think that's a desirable instead of a necessary.
That's a 3.
The request for the software, I agree, is a 1.
Grasmere Town Hall.
Grassmere Town Hall reciting.
I'm gonna,
I think 3 would
3.
be a good number for that one. And the 395,000 for the grant application for the rail trail. They've listed it as a desirable, so I guess we'll agree with them.
Yeah, it's a 3.
Offsetting revenues,
Nothing there.
library,
Library.
exterior, I agree, it's a 1,
I've
or
got
2,
it
I
as a
mean,
2.
rather,
A 2.
necessary.
The IMC software is a 2, and the hindsight replacement is a 1. I think that's correct.
And why do we call that a 1? What was the hindsight replacement?
That is, I want to make
Is
sure.
that the camera in the car
Yes.
that watches what's going on when, it's our first one in?
Hindsight recorder.
I think that was in there.
No, that's part of,
office
that's part
building.
of the communications.
Recording of both radio and telephone traffic by communications. Allows increased officer safety for location and types of calls being received. It allows them to review and efficiently dispatch multiple calls.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, they don't really have that capability.
All right, so I guess we can just go along with the chief's recommendation
Yeah.
and make that a 1, is that what that is?
Mhm.
And that page is done. Well, our CIP priorities filled in on the next one for the fire station, and we'll agree with that. Pavilion remodel. I think that's a 2
I think it's a
myself.
2. Yeah. It really is needed, but it's certainly not life safety. Same thing.
Recreational field development is a 3
3.
at least. Actually, it's a 4. It's deferrable. We have decided to defer it out 3 years, so I think we should really call a horse a
Yeah.
horse.
Yeah, that's right, we are throwing it out 3 years. Tennis
Tennis
court,
courts, they have it as a 1.
Uh,
I don't know the condition of the court, so I can't
I
speak to
don't know
that.
either, but he does say 1 out of 3 are usable.
Well, then I guess it would be an urgent, right?
Yeah,
Bless you.
leave that as a 1.
Did you sneeze or cough?
Coughed.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you sneezed.
Playground equipment, that's a 2.
I agree.
And the Barnard track, it is a 1.
Not in my book.
Well, we've got a question
We're waiting for
pending.
a,
We're waiting for it.
We're waiting for a explanation on that
Yeah.
one. So we're gonna leave that alone until we get our explanation,
All right.
if that's all right with everyone.
Yep.
Road plan,
Well,
Sorry.
we got, okay.
my
Okay.
opinion, a road plan's a 2.
Sorry, can you go back to?
Yes.
About the tennis court. Tennis court was 1, playground, Roy Park Playground was
2.
2. And then,
We are not gonna rate the renovation of the Barnard track until we have a better explanation.
okay, question mark. All right,
Yeah,
Road plan, I think is a 2 myself. I don't think it's urgent. I think it's necessary. I don't think it's urgent.
It's hard to say that for such a huge mass,
Comprehensive
because
plan.
parts of it are gonna be more urgent than others.
Well, I can't speak to this in public, so.
Can't really split it up and rate it.
South Mass drainage requirement, that's a 1.
nothing we can do about that.
so we're making
Cemetery.
road plan 2?
I think the road plan's a 2, but that's my opinion. Does the committee want to make it a 1 like the?
I'd leave it as a 1. That's my thought.
The road plan was presented to the budget committee at least a few years ago, and, I mean, it was just a horror show. I mean, about a quarter of the roads are in desperate state.
By what standard?
Failed roads.
This is New Hampshire. Drive in any town in New Hampshire except maybe Bedford. But they took on a $12 million bond, an $8 million bond, and a $20 million bond to fix roads in Bedford in about 8 years' time. And they're paying for it, right?
Yeah, but I've just watched so many roads. I mean, they failed to put in drainage, they don't blast, they don't build right. I mean, we're skimping and saving.
What is the committee's recommendation, a 1?
I'd say 1.
I'd say 1 on the road
Okay.
plan.
You agree as a 1? I'll be the dissenting vote.
West Lawn Cemetery expansion.
Where are we? South Mass drainage, then we have bond payment, which is last year. West Lawn Cemetery as a 2,
2.
okay?
I guess you can call that life safety, huh?
Worthley Hill,
Oh, maybe it's death safety.
Worthley Hill, we're gonna get an explanation on from somebody. No, we're gonna let the selectmen deal with that one.
Right.
It's called a 1.
I'd call it a 2.
I think so too. For it to be a 1, it'd have to be flowing down the road and not in the pipes for my book.
Yeah.
Transfer station generator.
That's a 3,
That's a
let's agree.
Yeah, that's a 3.
Let's agree to agree.
Pleasant Street Bridge, that one we've,
Then we're gonna get an answer on that from Carl
so that we'll leave that
on
alone.
when it's gonna be in the program.
That becomes a question mark.
I agree that the Pleasant Street Mass Road improvements are a 3.
Yep.
Like to cross out the part that says Elm, Main, and High Street intersections. I don't want any changes over there. They're bad enough the way they are.
Well, that was one of those plans that it looked wonderful on paper.
Well, if you're gonna put islands in the middle of High Street, we're gonna have trouble getting up and down High Street.
I'm just saying that the plan that what they built there 6, 7 years ago looked great on paper. I don't think it does anything for the intersection, though, in terms of utilization or safety.
Line 220, reconstruct Main Street, North Mass. That's a 3 at the very least, if not a deferrable. I don't know what you people want to
I'd
put
call
on
it a 4. That's my thought.
deferrable. Pipe and camera inspection equipment, that's a 3.
Yep.
The construction of the bonds, we're gonna talk with Carl about those detention ponds,
Yeah.
we'll get an answer on that.
That's a question mark.
Rail trail culvert repairs,
2 or 1?
Yeah, that's sort of like what I was saying with the road plan, since there's two components to that. One of them, I would say, is a 1 and the other one is a 2, so what do you make the combined one?
We don't have a 1.5.
Yeah.
we either agreed or we agree to
Well,
disagree.
you're more familiar with the rail trail than any of us, Lowell.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, of the two aspects there,
Have you been out to look at that slope failure?
yes.
What's
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah, the slope failure is less critical than the culvert
Culvert.
failure.
The culvert failure, one of the big stones has collapsed in.
Well,
right?
no, it's 2 now, and that's why that's more important,
Well, have they gone out and done anything to try to do anything for it?
not that I'm aware of.
Well, I guess we gotta leave it as a 1. Let the Board of Selectmen decide. Grants, bond payments, move on. Bond payment for the landfill closure, we can't touch that, that's a 1. Okay,
Nothing on page 7, right?
we're on page 7 now, which is, a combination, a totaling on the first 3 or 4 lines, then we have sewer, village, and Grassmere, we don't even touch them. We agree with whatever they wanna do. Schools. Building performance upgrades, they like 2, I like 2. Renovations, they like 2, what's everybody like?
I think Bartlett is a 2.
Bartlett's in tough shape,
Bartlett's a 2.
most definitely.
If not a 1. 2 for sure.
We move down to line 310 for 2013, I guess they say 2, we say 2.
And performance upgrades, that's a 2. Mountain View, we got nothing coming up in the next year.
GHS Theater. They have it as a 3, and I would agree, I'd like to see left that as a 3.
There's a 3.
And GHS Innovation and Addition.
I'm not sure what that,
What, building aid? There is no building aid. New bond issue around. Did they redo a bond, is that what that is, Earl?
I believe that is correct.
They refinanced a bond to save money?
Yes,
That's what that is. Yeah,
or that's the bond payment.
new bond issue around 6.015 million, average 3.14%, replaces an $12 million bond at 4.76%, paid off
Yeah.
7/15/221.
So that actually becomes a 1.
Yeah, because it's necessary. Well, no, it's necessary, it's not urgent.
Well, no, but all, we've been coding all the
Any-
bond payments as
yeah,
1s
anything that-
throughout,
So we'll make it a 1.
because we have no choice.
I don't know why that was listed on there as 2.
And
It
that,
should have just
that
been blank.
concludes our. So, it's 10 minutes of 9. I think it's a good time to stop, if everybody agrees. We can have a relatively short meeting at our next meeting if we get our answers that we're looking for. And we would have a few decisions to make. And then we can vote on the matrix, or we can go back through and, Brian, will you have a matrix for us next time that reflects the new numbers?
Yes.
In a week's time? That's not a lot of time for you.
No,
Wait,
we've
we're
got
not
2 weeks.
meeting in a week.
We got 2 weeks. Our next meeting is August 2nd.
Oh, okay. So that'll give Brian time, because then we can look at our bottom lines again, and we can see how the columns have evened out. That's more important to me. Not so much the bottom lines as the evening process.
Mr. Chair, I have one more thing.
Please, Brian.
I was going through the zoning ordinance and reading regarding impact fees. And in that section of the zoning ordinance, there's a part that actually talks to CIP committee and coming up with a process that designates all of the impact fees for specific projects. And the requirement that if an impact fee is not designated by the CIP committee, that it stay in an account until the next year. So, I would like to also bring to you next time some kind of proposal of how impact fees should be designated. I'm not sure, I mean, maybe that's something that we all need to kind of, maybe something that, Tim, you and I should sit down prior to the next meeting and go over, and then bring to the committee. I talked to Sue, and she said she felt that that should be addressed by the CIP committee.
I'd like to read the text. Could you make the text available to all the members of the committee by email?
Yeah.
Because that way everybody will be able to offer an opinion on it.
I've got the whole ordinance, Brian, so if you know, if you just wanna give me the appropriate section, I can read it.
Sure. What I'll do though is in addition to that, I'll just send an email out that has the text
Excuse me.
copied out of the ordinance. Y'all can take a look at it.
So if we go through that kind of exercise, we need to get input from
The department
appropriate
heads,
departments on that, or are we supposed to just wing it?
I don't know. Maybe I should talk to the department heads. I mean, it's a very vague statement in there, just saying that the CIP committee shall designate, or come up with a process to designate each of these impact fees.
Is that a statute? Or is that something?
It's part of our zoning ordinance,
Well,
so,
then I think there's no point in talking to the department heads because it's not in their, ball's not in their court, it's in our court.
I mean, we're gonna end up having to, choose, okay, which project gets to be designated for impact fees.
Well, that's already been decided by the Board of Selectmen. They've decided the rail trail was gonna take the lion's share of the parks.
But there's a bunch, I mean, there's 50,000 additional, parks impact fees sitting in that fund that need to be designated to something else,
Well, we don't have to decide
so.
at the next meeting what we're gonna
No,
do.
but by the same token, we are showing some of the offsetting revenues as coming from impact fees for various projects.
We have one that I know of.
We at least need to come up with a process to designate it. And then if, I know the recreation fees are the only ones really that are under the gun to be spent, but we're gonna have the selectmen release the rest of the rail trail and just kind of encumber it for
Unless we
spending.
change that.
So the other ones are a couple of years out probably on spending, so, I mean, we can probably take the next year and
But
do
impact
the
fees,
actual designation.
impact fees are always under the gun, because if they don't use them within a certain time frame, you have to return them to the landowner.
Right.
Right. So it's a very important decision, so let's, we'll take it seriously, and I would like everybody to be able to review the text of the zoning ordinance, so everybody understands the text. And if that way, if we're all gonna offer an opinion, we'll all be informed. And send it to Alan,
I'll send it to everybody. on
whoever's
the
missing
committee.
here tonight.
Yep.
Sue Tremblay, Selectman.
Mark.
Mark.
Yep.
Is this a legal meeting without the selectman's rep here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the way
I'm
the
just
CIP,
asking.
no, the way the CIP committee is constituted, there are 4 designated reps: planning board, school board, selectmen, and budget committee.
And then for community,
And for-
community at large.
Correct. So, he happens to be the selectman's rep, but he's no more, no less powerful than anybody else on the committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say we didn't make any formal decisions tonight. We didn't vote on anything really. It was.
No, we voted to move stuff around, but we have a quorum, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right,
All
we're getting up against the time frame here, so if anybody else has anything else to do,
I
say it
move,
fast.
we move.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Ivan. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, passes. Adjourn, 8:58.